Given the basic premise of Live Alive, it's hard to think the game would be as entertaining and well integrated as it is. Live Alive is an ambitious game by today's standards, and the fact that it originally came out before I was even born is mind-blowing. Live Alive is a must-play for JRPG fans because of how important it was to later games with similar premises such as Chrono Trigger and Octopath Traveler, and also because it's a fun experience on its own. Live Alive is finally getting the attention it deserves because of this new remake, and I am so glad I picked it up and gave it a try. Live Alive is a turn-based JRPG that originally came out in 1994 for the SNES and was developed and published by Square. The game performed below expectations for Square though, and a Western release never occurred, although Japan got re-releases on the Wii U and 3DS. Several notable things about Live Alive include the directorial debut of Takashi Tokita, who later directed Chrono Trigger, the debut at Square of composer Yoko Shimomura, who has since done Kingdom Hearts soundtrack, the use of 8 different manga artists for each of the eras in the game, and the numerous inspirations for the game from Western films like Shane and 2001: A Space Odyssey to Japanese games such as Final Fantasy and Romancing Saga. A fan translation into English by Aeon Genesis helped bring attention to the game from some JRPG fans, but it wouldn't get proper attention until the remake was announced in 2022. The remake was done in the HD 2D style popularized by Octopath Traveler, and the art and designs were redone to complement the style by Naoki Ikushima, although the original designers are still credited in-game. The remake was released on July 22, 2022 exclusively for the Nintendo Switch and was developed by Square Enix and Historia, with publishing rights going to Square Enix in Japan and Nintendo worldwide. Reception to the game was mostly positive, with many praising the unique aspects of the game from JRPGs of the time and the quality of life upgrades in the remake. Criticism came mostly in some areas where gameplay or navigation were not updated from the original, leading to some confusion on what to do next. Sales-wise, the developers announced the game topped 500,000 sales as of the end of August, an impressive debut and hopefully a sign to companies that there is still demand for cult classic 90s JRPGs. The story of Live Alive is a little convoluted because it is actually 8 individual stories that then lead into a final story where they all team up. Talking about that last one though would involve spoilers, so let's talk about the 8 individual stories. Each story is set in a different era with a unique protagonist. Prehistory, the first, is the caveman era of history with creatures like mammoths and saber-toothed tigers around as enemies and a society without a formal language. Our protagonist is the young caveman Pogo. Next is Imperial China, the successor, where our protagonist, the Earth and Heart Master, is looking for a disciple to train to pass down his unique martial arts style. Then we have Twilight of Edo Japan, the Infiltrator, where you play as the shinobi Oburumaru on his first big mission, a combined rescue and assassination mission. The Wild West, the Wanderer, has our main character, the Sundown Kid, a man with a hefty bounty on his head, team up with a bounty hunter to protect a town plagued by bandits. In the present day, the Strongest, a wrestler, battles his way through highly skilled opponents, learning moves and techniques to eventually become the strongest wrestler in the world. The near future, the Outsider, has our superpowered orphan protagonist take on a gang called the Crusaders and the shady group backing them. Then, in the distant future, the Mechanical Heart, our protagonist, is a friendly robot built by a member of the space crew heading back to Earth. Their cargo? A monster. I think you can tell where this is going. Lastly, the scenario you have to do after completing all the others, the Middle Ages, the Lord of Dark, where our protagonist Orsted has to rescue the princess from the Lord of Dark. These scenarios are pretty straightforward and basic. I was able to summarize several of them in one sentence after all. However, what made Live Alive and all its scenarios work was the efforts to make the situation unique in tone and style, and the twists that were put on some of the more standard scenarios. Live Alive's writers take the familiar and build upon it in ways that really resonated with me. The characters are fun and distinctive in spite of their short time they have to develop, and I can easily recall moments from every era's story arc that stood out to me, in good and bad ways. Poor Watanabe. By making the scenario detailed and memorable, the writers gave us a great chance to get invested in each of the characters before they team up at the end. Oh, and that end could get its own video. I found it that fascinating, especially for a game that originally came out so early in Square's lifespan as a company. The story and characters have some pretty evident limitations, but I think so long as you're coming in with realistic expectations considering the length of the game, there's a lot to enjoy on the journey of Live Alive. Now, while each era of the game has different twists on the gameplay formula, I want to talk first about what they have in common: the combat. Combat takes place in a grid that you can move characters around in before performing abilities. The enemies will move too, and it will adjust the cooldown on when they can use their abilities. The positioning is important because certain skills affect different areas on the grid, which you need to consider both for your attacks and the enemy's attacks. The skills also have particular types that characters, both friend and foe, have weaknesses or resistances to. There are a lot of types of abilities for use, especially once you hit the final chapter. Most games would have these abilities cost some sort of stamina or MP, but in Live Alive, these are the only moves available to you. There is no basic attack, but nothing costs anything more than time to charge, for most of the strongest moves, if you perform an action. Otherwise, the battles have all the standard turn-based battle tropes: status effects, items, and running away. The difficulty of the individual battles does vary by era, but overall I would place this in the category of the only really difficult battles are some of the bosses, and that one bear. With the combat largely staying the same no matter who you're playing as, the real distinction in the gameplay between eras comes in either the structure of gameplay or special abilities. For an example of a structural difference, we can look at the present day scenario. Our wrestler challenges a group of veteran martial artists in whatever order you pick. He builds up this arsenal of skills by copying the moves the veterans use on him. So in order to learn a move, you need to goad your opponent into using it on you. Some of the structural differences also have effects on level progression, such as leveling up in Imperial China's scenario coming from training. For a special ability example, Prehistory gives Pogo a great sense of smell, and when used, can find items or enemies in an area. There's a pretty good balance between the distinction coming from ability differences versus structural differences, and the variety it allowed in the game helped keep each scenario fresh. Another difference is how battles are triggered. Some have enemies on the world map that you can see, others have random encounters, and some every encounter is scripted. I'm glad that most adopted the enemies you can see on the map method, but it's just another example on how they distinguish between the eras. The remake of the game was pretty faithful to the original on a lot of fronts, and mainly added in quality of life features and stuff to enhance the user experience. The weaknesses and resistances are now displayed on the battle screen instead of being hidden in the code. The map now has a marker to point to where you need to go next, or at least in the general area. Items on the map now sparkle. This section could go on and on talking about the minor changes to make the game a better experience. I'm glad they fiddled around with some of the gameplay features to enhance the game while maintaining the essence of the story and style. The biggest change though that the remake adds is with the ending, so I can't go into detail on it. At least from what I've heard from people who have played the original, the remake ending is a satisfying addition, but you can form your own opinion on that. What the remake also added though is the new art style, embracing the HD 2D graphics system used in Octopath Traveler and Triangle Strategy. The character designs were also updated to try and capture the original design while also fitting into the new engine together and not looking completely out of place. The result is a game that I think looks really good with the overall design and also stands out compared to Octopath and Triangle Strategy. Part of that is the setting. The art direction of each time period, characters, and locations is superb. Despite being sprites, the animation work lends character to the world and people, especially in the era it's most needed, prehistory. The game looks so good, while still adhering to the original vision of the game. Musically, the game's soundtrack was similarly updated with care to preserve the original's catchy tunes while enriching them with the full orchestral treatment. The soundtrack was already a classic, and these new arrangements serve to highlight how good they were from the start, and Yoko Shimomura's deft touch of musical composition. As stated before, quality of life updates have made the user experience much better, and I really like the look and feel of the UI. When it comes to voice acting, and once again we have an instance of an HD 2D game with plenty of talented actors who aren't being used to their full potential and ability. Some still manage to stand out, and I don't think it overall detracts from the game, but it would be nice at some point to be able to say the voice acting enhanced the experience. I just can't say it in this game, and it's not just the short script at fault. When it comes to sound design though, the game excels. Lots of good choices and satisfying noises for battle, exploration, the entire prehistory section, etc. Live Alive lives up to its legacy with the new presentation in the remake, an excellent update and distinctive flavor of the HD 2D system. Live Alive is a fascinating game for study. I know since I completed the game, I've thought about how the game plays with and sometimes subverts the games, films, and other media it draws inspiration from. Then we come to how it works in the present day with over 20 years of updates in games that have drawn inspiration from Live Alive itself. All in all though, what makes me really recommend this game to those who think it looks interesting is because it is a fun game, a solid experience from beginning to end. The game is so tightly constructed and plays so well, it's hard to believe that the bones of this game are so old. If you are at all interested in RPGs and the price seems right to you, go out and get Live Alive. Thank you for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think about Live Alive if you played it, or if you plan on getting it. Please give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Likes really help the channel grow and reach new people as the YouTube algorithm is only pacified by engagement. Subscribe if you have not already to keep up with my videos, and I hope to see you in the next one. Have a great day, and happy gaming.